why in Bolivia they have traditional wrestling with women who wear skirts, and what the world's largest mirror looks like. Today we will talk about the country with the most dangerous and deadly road on the planet. Get ready to find out why players at sporting events just pass out of nowhere and need oxygen masks, even the most famous ones. But before that, quickly write me in the comments about which next country you want to do 50 facts about. You decide entirely. Multinational country of Bolivia. And I'm not kidding here, this is their official name. After 2009, they became multinational to honor the different ethnicities in the country, as well as their indigenous population. Otherwise, the name Bolivia comes naturally from Simón Bolívar, who was, by the way, the first president of this country, and is something of an absolute hero for Latin America, because he freed many countries from Spanish rule. Geographically, Bolivia is located in the central part of South America and is landlocked. In 1879, they lost their beaches because they started a war with Chile, known as the War of the Pacific. Bolivia and Peru are in a secret alliance but are defeated by Chile, which is incidentally supported by Great Britain for financial interests. Every year on the 23rd of March, the Bolsheviks celebrate the Day of the Sea and mourn the lost territories. In general, the history of the country is a bit sad. Bolivia is known as the country that lost every war in which it participated. Territories are constantly being taken from it, and the last piece that is being lost is the size of two Bulgarias, 250,000 square kilometers, and thus the valuable access to the sea. However, the area of the country today is 1,098,000 square kilometers, which is by no means small. It can fit more or less two Germanys. From the 1930s to the end of the last century, Bolivia was torn apart by coups and military rule. Only in 2005 did things stabilize with Evo Morales, who, by the way, ruled for 14 years. Bolivia is the poorest country in all of South America, often fighting with Venezuela for this negative prize. History is simply not kind to them, but apparently it is also to the people themselves, because their lands are super rich in minerals. They have extremely serious deposits of minerals and metals such as silver, zinc, and lithium, which has been extremely valuable recently. However, Bolivia is also the most corrupt country in South America, along with Venezuela, and so their deposits remain undeveloped. The population of Bolivia is a little over 12 million people, which to be honest is quite little for this territory. The largest ethnic group there is called the Mesti, who, by the way, are a mixture of Europeans and the indigenous population of South America. Otherwise, 90% of the people in Bolivia profess Christianity. The topography of the country is more or less divided into two: mountains in the west, where the Andes occupy 40% of the territory, and a plain in the east. The average altitude of the country is over 1,100 meters. Their climate ranges from tropical to polar in the higher parts, and Bolivia is also considered one of the wettest countries in the world. On average, about 2,000 millimeters of rainfall there per year. Bolivians are super nationalists. Even the official currency of the country is called the Bolivian Bolivar. But the interesting thing is that their coins have the inscription, "Union makes strength." Bolivia is among the countries that have more than one capital. The government one is La Paz, while the constitutional one is Sucre, which also houses the Supreme Court. Officially, by the way, Sucre is the capital, which is translated from French as sugar, but everyone knows La Paz. One of the largest deposits of dinosaur footprints in the world can be seen near Sucre. People have made a special park, and many of the dinosaur models are life-size. The steps themselves, which by the way are more than 5,000 in number, can be seen on a vertical scale due to the displacement of the tectonic plates. The Bolivians are terribly proud of one of their capitals, La Paz. It is the highest capital in the whole world with its 3,600 meters above sea level, and very often makes tourists suffocate due to the rarefied air. However, the largest city in Bolivia is neither La Paz nor Sucre, but Santa Cruz de la Sierra, which with a population of nearly 2 million people, its name translates as God's Cross on the mountain and is something of a record holder for the longest city names. An interesting fact is that if you use public transport, no matter in which city, you must greet all the other passengers or at least wave at them when you get on. So do not forget, because they are offended. In most cities, there are people who dress up like zebras and help children and elderly people cross the streets because the traffic is quite heavy. By the way, they have whole societies in which newly arrived zebras are trained. The lack of direct access to the sea makes trade in Bolivia very difficult. That is why for 10 years they have been insisting on a railway connection between the two oceans. There are 37 languages spoken in the country, with only 33 officially registered, the most spoken of which, of course, are the Spanish Quechua and Aymara. This is also one of the reasons for naming the multinational country Bolivia. Quechua is the language of the Incas who inhabited these lands in the past. Hear it as it sounds in the original.
Ayanchu. Ayanchu.
In the southwestern part of Bolivia is one of the richest silver mines in the whole world. It is located near the town of Potosi, and in the not-too-distant past was responsible for the production of more than half of the world's silver. The nickname of this mine is the mountain that eats people because of the many deaths. Did you know that the great revolutionary Ernesto Guevara de la Serena, better known as Che Guevara, met his death near a small village in Bolivia? He is executed by the Bolivian army. The government of Bolivia is setting up a special witchcraft shop that sells some pretty interesting things: dried frogs, strange stone carvings, and llama embryos, which are believed to bring good luck, among other things. In Bolivia, voting in elections is absolutely mandatory for every citizen by law, but the years that give you this right are floating. For example, if a person is married, he can go vote when he turns 18. But if he is single, he has to wait until 21 to exercise his right to vote. But wait, it gets even more interesting. If you don't cast your vote, in addition to the fact that you will receive a fine, in the shops, they can refuse to serve you. For 30 days after the election, you have to present a sheet at the store that you have voted for, and only then can you buy something there. Not that anyone follows it, by the way, as far as I've read, but it's still an interesting approach. We're halfway through. A thumbs up on the video if everything here is interesting to you. Let's continue with more shocking facts about Bolivia. Did you know that the city of El Alto is considered the highest city in the world with a population of over 100,000 people? It is located at an impressive 4,150 meters, overshadowing even La Paz with its 3,600. About 1 million people choose it as their home, despite its extreme height. Bolivia is also home to one of the highest lakes in the world, Titicaca. It is again located in the Andes at an altitude of 3,812 meters and is 281 meters deep. In the past, as we know, it was a sacred place for the ancient Incas. There are legends tell of a huge ancient city that lies at its bottom, but despite all the research, the remains of such have not yet been found. One of the most mystically beautiful places in the world is also located in Bolivia. This, dear friends, is Salar de Uyuni, the most extensive salt flat in the world, covering an area of over 10,000 square kilometers and visible from space. It is located at over 3,600 meters above sea level. Every summer, Salar de Uyuni is covered with a thin layer of rainwater, and thus becomes the largest natural mirror on the planet. However, when it dries up, it also becomes the largest salt mine. There, you can stay in a hotel that is also made entirely of salt. The walls, the beds, the columns, even the tables and chairs are made entirely of the salt bricks with which it is built. Just below Salar de Uyuni lies the world's largest lithium deposit, estimated to contain over 21 million tons of this ultralight metal. You know that lithium is especially necessary for the modern world, as it is an essential component for the production of batteries. There is a huge butterfly reserve in Bolivia. Hundreds of colorful species can be seen there, most of which are endemic only to South America. People have also made a special cage where you can go in and touch some of them. Did you know that in Bolivia, the guinea pig is not only a pet, but also a much-loved local delicacy? There they are raised as piglets for food. The highest international airport in the world, as you probably guessed, is again in Bolivia. It is as much as 4,062 meters above sea level, serving the capital La Paz and the city of El Alto. Indeed, it is so high that even Boeing and Airbus use it to test their new machines under such conditions. Coca leaves are completely legal in Bolivia. They chew them or make them into tea, very often offering them to tourists to deal with altitude sickness. However, the powders produced by it are prohibited. Things with mobile internet and network coverage in general in Bolivia are a little sketchy, to say the least. On the map next to me, you can see that only the big cities have a range and a very small part of the roads. 5G is not there yet. The minimum wage in Bolivia is about $590 per month, but internet subscriptions there start at $100 per month. That is, after taxes and fees, assuming about 20–25% should go to internet access. Therefore, the Bolivians did not use it very much. If you want to constantly learn such interesting things, then subscribe to the channel. Bolivia appears as one of the cheapest countries to live in all of South America. Food and public transportation there are extremely affordable. As far as I read, a liter of fresh milk costs about $1. A kilo of tomatoes and cucumbers also costs around $1. This is also due to their low VAT of only 13%. Bolivians are known as good cooks, and their traditional dish, which can be found everywhere on the streets there, is called solteña. It's like a pocket full of beef, potatoes, vegetables, and peas, and it's baked until golden. In the toilets of even expensive hotels and restaurants or malls, there is no toilet paper. The reason is not inflation like in Venezuela, but more like a sewage problem. Usually when you go to the bathroom in Bolivia, there will be an employee waiting there to hand you a roll or a few napkins, and specifically warn you not to throw them in the toilet, but rather in the bin. The roads in Bolivia outside of urban areas are horrendous to say the least. The state is home to the deadliest stretch of road in the entire world, El Camino del Muerte, or the Road of Death. This 37-kilometer stretch connects the cities of La Paz, and which is super narrow with terrifying gaps between 200 and 300 people die there every year passing through it. Very often whole buses fall with their passengers in them. Almost every car show on the planet has an episode about El Camino del Muerte. I remember even Top Gear narrowly missing the 600-meter drop. In Bolivia, scammers disguise themselves as police officers and trick tourists into following them to the station. Instead of going to the station, however, they are taken to an alley and robbed. This is a fairly common scam, and one should be careful. Bolivia is one of 3 countries in all of South America where you won't see a McDonald's. The reason for this is that Bolivians reject fast food as a culture and want to preserve their own culinary traditions. The National Stadium of Bolivia is named Fernando Silin and is located at 3,640 meters above sea level in La Paz. Foreign teams are terrified when they have to play there, because the players at this height tire much faster due to the thin air, and some even faint. It is constantly necessary for the medical teams to enter the field with oxygen masks to give to the football players. In a prison in Bolivia, prisoners own their cells and can rent them out to other prisoners if they are sentenced to languish there. You can pay for a more luxurious cell and, of course, protection. As such, for example, with jacuzzis, they start at $10,000. The Madidi National Park in Bolivia is one of the untouched treasures of the planet. It is located in the upper reaches of the Amazon River, and it is believed that there are still many undiscovered species of animals and insects in it. In terms of territory, by the way, it is almost twice as large as the state of Montenegro. In Bolivia, you may see women wrestle. This sport is actually an ancient tradition and is called cholita, requiring the ladies to wear special skirts and wrestle. Naturally, it has been modified a bit these days to make it more attractive. We end with one of my favorite topics, the ancient riddles. Bolivia is home to Pumapunku and Tiwanaku, the mysterious cities with such precisely carved stones, some of them in the shape of H, that they are an absolute mystery to this day. The precision of some cuts and holes is downright laser-like. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more interesting content. Bye for now.